So a few months ago, I made a Leatherman sheath, and it's been working really great. I have not a whole lot of issue with it, but I mean, to be honest with you, I was pretty new at leatherworking, and I'd like to make a better one. So what's going on with this one right here is I made the belt loops a little too narrow. They still hold, but when you have it on your belt, it's got a little bit of slack, which I don't really care for. And basically, I'm just not happy with it. So what I'm going to do is redesign it, and this is going to be what it looks like. Anyway, it's going to be a friction sheath, and you're going to be able to grab it from here. This is like the back piece, and I'll have to expand the front piece so that it can make the pocket. Hopefully it turns out something like this, and we'll see. If you're new here, please subscribe, tell your friends, all that kind of stuff. Now I'm cutting it down the center to increase the center by 1/4 of an inch. This will allow a little more room for the pocket, make it so that the belt holes aren't so close to the stitch lines around the pocket. Now I'm just going to transfer the shape onto a piece of leather and then cut it out. I'll be getting another pair of scissors soon. Just using an X-Acto knife or a razor blade is not the way I like to cut leather. I'll be using some saran wrap to protect the Leatherman as I form it to the leather piece. I also made the bottom leather piece a little bit oversized to make the stitching easier, and then I can cut it back afterwards. I'm going to cut the front a little oversized just to make sure I have enough room for when the pocket's formed and it pulls back. The leather needs to be soaked a little bit in water now, probably a minute or so, to make it easy to form around the Leatherman. This part right here, forming it around the front, it doesn't have to be any sort of science involved. It's super easy. Just get it close and make sure the top is bigger than the bottom, and then throw some clamps on. I use leather scraps to keep the clamps from marring the leather. Using the bandsaw, I'll get pretty close to where I want this to end up, or the top piece in, and know exactly how big my pocket's going to be. Now that I've made a reference line from the rear to the front, I can go ahead and cut it on the bandsaw as well, and then when I glue this up I can bring these together and the pocket will still be intact. Now I'm using a piece of trace paper to draw the initial detail that goes on the top piece. Time to scuff up the leather now to make it easier to glue and increase the bond between the two surfaces. I use barge cement. That seems to be what most of the leather workers I've seen use, and it works really well. After applying the glue, wait till they're just tacky and then go ahead and press them together. This will make it for a really good bond, and then tap them lightly with a hammer. I have the sewing machine it's working pretty good for leather, as long as your leather's not very thick. Using the edge beveler here to just knock off all the corners and make them nice and round. I'm adding leather sheen to the inside where the Leatherman will sit, just to make it a little more rigid. I'm going to add neat's foot oil to the top. To get to the final dimension, I'll be using this sander. Take it from me, do not try to edge bevel when your leather is still wet. My sewing machine can't reach in this area around the pocket, so I'm just going to go ahead and hand stitch it. I'm using a board in place of the Leatherman so that I can put my maker's mark on. I want it to be a little darker, so I'm going to go ahead and dye the whole thing brown, and then eventually the lighter leather will show up as a lighter brown. I'm adding leather sheen to the outside just to give it a nice little shine and just a little more rigid. And now I'll use the burnishing tool for hours to make this thing nice and shiny and slick. And here's the finished product. This is what it looks like front and back.